We're going to work with an apple, which is a simple object and one I'm sure that most of us are quite familiar with. If you're ready, let's begin. Take a good look at this apple. Look at it until you feel that you are quite familiar with it. Then close your eyes and imagine that you still see the apple in front of you. See the apple in your mind's eye and scan the image, looking over it just as you did when you were looking at the apple with your eyes open. As you look at the image, notice the shape of the apple. Look at the shadings of color. Are there any irregularities? Look at the tilt of the apple and the angle of the stem. You may open your eyes. Now compare your inner image with the apple on the screen. Notice any aspects you were not aware of while visualizing. Now close your eyes again and repeat the exercise. All right? Now put your apple on a plate. Now put a banana next to the apple. You can make your plate bigger if you want to. Now add an orange to the arrangement. That looks very artistic. You can throw some grapes on the plate too, if you would like. Very good. You may open your eyes. Now, this brings us to another problem. When we begin experiencing success with creating images, we sometimes find that we can't control them. While we can get the image in our minds to look the way it does in the outer world, we can't always seem to transform it into the something else that we're looking for. This seems particularly true when we're dealing with serious illnesses or deep-seated personal anxieties or problems about others. After all, when I'm very unhappy with myself or others, it's very hard for me to see myself or that other person as being well and healthy. As a matter of fact, it's quite often these current bad ideas and rotten feelings about ourselves and others that prevent us from creating and controlling positive images. Whenever we try to visualize something positive, we end up with this feeling inside that somehow we're just lying to ourselves. We know it isn't true. We know it isn't real. And as I'm sure both you and I have experienced, when we don't believe in our visualization, it never gets off the ground. Now, there are 3 techniques which are very useful in dealing with this kind of problem. First of all, before we can begin creating images to improve our lives, we need to get in touch with the current negative ones which consciously or unconsciously have created our current situation. Whenever we look at these negative feelings, we find, being Rosicrucians and being human, that we naturally tend to want to avoid them. We're uncomfortable with admitting negative images into our minds, with giving images life before we're certain they're correct, because we know thoughts are things, and we're hesitant to give energy to anything other than a positive image or a positive goal. Yet, fratres and sorors, visualization is a learning experience as well as a tool of creation. We can and do communicate with our inner selves. It is perfectly acceptable for us to tell our inner selves, okay, now I'm just going to try on these ideas and feelings and experiences to determine by experience what is wrong and how to right it. Sometimes it's only after working with many variations of a visualization that we finally begin to feel when we have the perfect one. Then, at that point, we can tell our inner selves, okay, inner self, now it's time for us to begin serious visualizing. As a matter of fact, it's quite often a very good idea to examine our visualizations for what has been called the twinge effect, for the sense that something isn't right, or for the difficulty in controlling a positive image. When negative feelings arise, and they will, it's important not to reject them. Pain, anger, anxiety, disbelief, and irritation can be tools to allow us to discover what is wrong. When we accept them and take a look for what's causing them, we find that they may point to the very reason for the difficulty with the positive images. We may find that they indicate that there are other aspects of our lives we need to work with first. Or we may find that they are just the reemergence of our old habitual no to happiness, in which case a simple no to the no may often suffice. But when we have enough courage to explore and experience these negative images and feelings, we will find that we can dispel them. And when we eliminate them, we find that we can begin to believe in our positive visualizations and will find success unlimited with them. Now, another technique for dealing with this kind of problem is to simply ask the inner self what to do. Whenever a positive image keeps changing into a negative one, or we find that we can't get the negative feelings and images out of our minds, let's just turn to our inner self and say, how can I transform this into a positive image? Show me how this can become a happy experience. Then, just let it happen. Let the images change and flow as the inner self directs them. Rather than our forcing an image or telling the inner self what we want, let's just let the inner self show us what is best. We don't need to act or choose, but just simply watch the images as they change and transform in our minds. When we do, I promise you, the images that we receive will indeed be very positive. We will gain a great deal of insight from them, and we will have no difficulty at all in believing in them.